Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I want to talk about the new upgrades and buffs given out to the various pre-existing Gung-Ho Collab characters. So, Gung-Ho Collab is one of the oldest running events because it is owned by Gung-Ho, which means we will be receiving this on a regular basis, which in turn means many cards receive buffs periodically. With that being said, I feel like the event is starting to definitely shift more towards Orb Skin IAP heavy, because the best cards tend to be the Orb Skin ones. But regardless of all that, let's take a look at all the buffs and upgrades to the existing characters. So these are the non-rare machine cards. You can acquire them via Monster Exchange. I still don't think they're truly relevant. Hanukkah has a bit more skill boost. They do have significantly more personal damage, but at the same time, there's nowhere to really utilize them. Like, the active skill gives you a 50% heal and half damage for 2 turns, and then leaders get buffed for attack. Like, I just don't see a place to really fit them in. It's more so like you collect them just for like aesthetics. Like, they could have some personal damage, but if you look at their attack stat, that's one of the lowest attack stats I've ever seen. So that's quite distressing. For Leo Bloomfield, they have condensed their awakenings so they have space for more stuff, and their personal damage has improved. They can gain they have two 3 attribute awakenings and a single 5 attribute awakening through super awakening. So you think, wow, high personal damage, but again, a terribly low attack stat. And again, they're just not going to fit into any particular place. Like, their active skill changes heal and hazards to water, and then attack buff and an RCV buff. Like, that's all it really does. And like, again, where can you fit them on a given team? If I think about it, Beach Mariel is another rainbow card that gives buffs for attack and RCV, and this Mariel blows Leo Bloomfield out of the water. It's not even close. Of course, this is not a rare machine card, so we got to set our expectations that much lower. For their weapon assist, they do gain some orb enhances, so maybe if you need a buffer for an attack and RCV and you need those resist, maybe it could be a useful weapon. Maybe, hard to say. For Alistair, they have gained better awakenings, they have more skill boost, they have more personal damage. They still have the co-op boost awakening, so their attack set, despite being low, is much higher in co-op. And this is actually meaningful for their active skill, because their active skill changes a column to dark and a column to wood, and then 70 times of your team's wood attack on all enemies. In theory, if you have lots of high attack wood cards, you can make this quite a large button. It's an AoE button. So if you are button farming and you do this in co-op, it's possible that she may be a meaningful card to utilize for button farming, because this is obviously a much stronger attack multiplier for her active skill, and that's really all that's truly going to be relevant for her, I feel, overall, because you want to leverage those co-op boost awakenings, so you really need a player in co-op if you button farm. And then next is Kuroyuri. She's a monster point card, and she has been utilized in the past to form the Kuroyuri loop. And basically what that is utilizing 2 of them on a given team in order to gain 40% health healed every 6 turns with a single turn of haste on a 12-turn cooldown. So with 2 Kuroyuris, or at least 1 Kuroyuri and something else with a 1-turn cooldown inheriting a Kuroyuri, you're able to create a loop of healing 40% of your health every turn. At this point in time, dungeons are too unforgiving, and you cannot stall and just like chip things down slowly. You just get executed within a few turns. So the Kuroyuri loop has definitely lost its luster. It may be kind of cool in theory, but the fact that you're dedicating 2 active skill slots just to heal and you're not actually killing the opposing spawn is kind of silly. I kind of view it akin to like playing like a board game called Spirit Island. Basically, if you're not destroying the invaders, you're just stalling things out, you're not making progress, and then eventually you will lose. Kind of like in Pad, if you don't make progress on the spawn, it's going to execute you after a fixed timer, at least in hard content. So yes, she does get improved, she does have personal damage, she does gain VDP through Super Awakening, like it is much stronger, but I feel like the Kuroyuri loop is just kind of past its prime, so to speak. And now we come into the rare machine cards, so these ones should be a little bit better overall. So for Noir, it's her leader skill that got buffed, which is the most unfortunate thing to get buffed, because generally speaking, the things that last the longest are weapon assists, then subs, then leaders. Leaders get power crept the fastest, and this is not a leader skill that's even that magical. Yes, it is a bit stronger. You have significantly more auto-follow attack, but it's just not going to change what you actually want to do overall. Like, I feel like it's an okay leader skill, but nothing special, unfortunately. Noir just doesn't get utilized like she did in the past, because we just have better options available. Her chibi form has gained an extra skill boost, some more personal damage, but the thing is, the active skill is meant for leader swapping, and if you're not leader swapping, like, there are inheritable leader swaps that give awakenings. So all these chibi leader swaps, like, they were good in the past when we had virtually no leader swap options. But now we have Neptune, like, Neptune's Weapon Assist, which is a Pantheon. We have Red Mieta, if you're able to get Mieta gems twice. Like, there are options at least. So I feel like a while ago when the chibi leader swaps first came out, it was much more important because there's hardly any options available. Now we just have more things that we can actually draw upon. For this Belial, this is not the gung-ho Belial we know and love. This is Imposter Belial. And the Imposter Belial has, well, 4 skill boosts. They have Super Poison Resist, 10 combo, and a bunch of TPAs. So, like, reasonable awakenings, but nowhere to truly utilize them on at this point in time because TPAs are, well, awkward. And most dark teams nowadays are blob-based. And blob-based teams will rather make Rose or the VDP and not give room for that TPA. So that's definitely unfortunate because if those TPAs were any other awakening, could have been a little bit better. Their active skill is still a 9-turn cooldown, and it just creates a tiny amount of button damage, which is insignificant. It removes orb blocks and then changes all orbs to fire, dark, and heal. Like, it's okay. Again, it's an okay, not that significant card. For their chibi form, tons of TPAs and problematic for the same reason I mentioned before. It's just TPAs. Hard to find a team that really leverages them if you're not Daytona. And they do gain more awakenings for personal damage, but again, nowhere to utilize. Mercury becomes an incredibly strong damage stick, or killer stick I should say, against dragon spawns, because now she has not 2, but 3 dragon killers, and 2 attack while above 50%. Huge amounts of personal damage against dragon type spawns, and it's just nice to have one in your pocket, so to speak, in order to farm certain content faster or ranking dungeons, because she just does so much relatively unconditional damage to dragon types. For her chibi form, she gained 2 more skill boosts, which is actually quite a significant buff, and she still has the same killer prowess, but I feel like being able to have 3 dragon killers and 2 attack while above 50% gives you a bit more value overall. I would just personally prefer Mercury in this form, but then again, she can utilize killers for those respective spawns, so maybe it depends what you need. Again, it all really just depends on what killer sticks you are missing at this point in time. For Shust gains an extra attack while below 50%, which is always nice. Their active skill is still a 300 times attack button on a single enemy, and it creates a row of water orbs on a 7 instead of 9-turn cooldown. If you're using water teams to farm stuff, swipe, this could possibly be useful because, well, he does do more damage when you're low health. He does have a lower cooldown. It's just okay to have overall. For their other chibi form, it's so many rows. Like, instead of having... Wait, they had 7 rows before. They still have 7 rows. They just gained a complete skill boost, super skill boost. So plus 2 skill boosts compared to before. Great stuff all around. There's still a 4-turn active skill that gives you a row of water orbs. So if you have lots of Shusts and you make their chibi form, you can just swipe around and you can just do tons of damage for water-based teams. But again, it all depends on the type of color teams you are farming with. For Artemis, they have awkward killers that have nowhere to utilize them on usually, but at the same time, 3 of these evolution material killers is unbelievably rare to have, so having one of these in your monster box might be useful at some point in time in the future. Like, going from 2 to 3 is a big jump, because instead of being 9 times, you're now 27 times personal damage. Quite a large amount of personal damage for no effort. So you can always use Awakening Latents to buff it higher, or you can use Inherits to buff it higher. Just a little flexibility over there, and a 1-turn cooldown reduction, so yay. In their chibi form, they just become like a reasonably generic damage card, but there's nowhere to really utilize them. I would keep Artemis in her base form in order to really leverage these killers, which is just unique. Like, being unique is a good thing. Being generic, not so great. For Zeta received quite a significant buff in terms of awakenings and active skill. His active skill is now not a 10-turn, but a 4-turn cooldown. It also gives an attack buff compared to before, and more bonus combos, and it still changes light and hazards to water. So, pretty strong buff overall for this active skill. It's a 4-turn cooldown. It's doing quite a few things. Their awakenings are improved. They have the same number of rows, but they now have an extra amount of movement time. Okay, it wasn't that great of a buff for the awakenings. And then you might think, well, maybe it's blue and red. Maybe I can use it on like my blue teams for all attribute requirements, but I just don't feel like it's going to really pan out because they don't have that much personal damage. Attack buffing is quote-unquote pointless, I feel, just because like Royal Oak or Natsuro tends to be the two mono water leaders that are utilized, and both of them provide an attack buff. So Zeta's not doing anything new in that aspect. So it's a little drawback there. I guess the 4-turn cooldown is what you could really try and leverage and utilize. It's an extra orb changer, but I still feel like he just doesn't fit anywhere particularly well. If that 7 combo is a 10 combo, maybe it could be a little bit more spicy, but it's just, I feel like nowhere we can truly utilize them at this point in time. For their dark form, they condense some of their awakenings so they have an extra skill boost and an extra half second of movement time, but that's all it really does. Like, it's a little bit better, sure. Their active skill is now a 300 times button instead of 200 times, which is probably not going to be that useful for most things you're going to be playing through. And then you half your own HP, and then you create 6 water, dark, and hard orbs. So, like, it's an okay active skill, it's an okay awakenings, and they still have that leader skill where they want to be below half health, but that's such a hard thing to juggle nowadays. Like, back in the day, years ago, Zeta had definitely more value. It's just not keeping up nowadays, I feel, for the most part. For Razer, in their base form, they now have 6 instead of 5 skill boosts, so that's obviously nice to have. They give us bigger time extend, and their leader skill likes being below half health, or really below 80%, but it's really half to get the real active awakenings bonus. So nowhere to really utilize them on, I feel, in all honesty. Like, can't really think of a place to truly leverage Razer. Like, you have a 5-turn cooldown that doesn't really accomplish that much. You half your own health, but you change fire, dark, and hazards to wood, maybe? I don't know. It's just awkward to squeeze in on any given team. In their dark form, they don't get a buff to their awakenings. They still have reasonable awakenings overall. Their active skill is now 15 instead of 17 turn cooldown. That gives you 2 turns of attribute and damage absorption cancellation. So, like, it's not a bad thing to have. Like, if you're playing, like, mid-range difficulty content, having this as a sub makes it charge up faster, which I guess can be helpful. But at the same time, if you have Avalon Drake, I would much rather use Avalon Drake unless you need the attribute absorption, because Avalon Drake is a superior choice for damage absorption cancellation. For Tsukuyomi, their awakenings were buffed. They now have a 10 combo and a 7 combo, and they can have a 7 combo, I believe, through super awakenings. And you might think, wow, that's a lot of personal damage. They have some team health and skill bind resist, which is maybe awkward for some teams. But the problem is they have an absolutely abysmally low attack stat. So even though their personal damage multipliers are high, they will still not perform that well. They are still a universal buffer. And when I say universal, I mean they give an attack, RCV, and movement time buff. Like, it is nice. It's a 7-turn cooldown. Cool. But I just don't feel like we could really leverage them as a sub. Maybe you could argue on Daytona teams if you need skill bind resist desperately and a universal buffer. Maybe it could be something valuable. I don't have a Daytona, so I don't get to play around with it. But maybe that may be something to keep in mind, because it does give skill bind resist, which is something you need, and team health, which is also something you need. And universal buffing is never a bad thing. Like, having more movement time and an RCV is helpful. Daytona gives you attack buff anyways. For Joker, the joke's still on him. They're still pretty useless of a card, unfortunately. Like, they did get a 10 combo awakening, so, like, yes, they do hit a bit harder, but there's nowhere to use them on. They have a terrible attack stat. It's just like a mid-rarity card that just still doesn't provide that much value. For Dark Reach, their stats have been buffed. They have more attack and more health, which is cool. And their leader skill has been improved, but it's still not a stronger leader skill compared to, like, say, like Story Sakuya, Story Mary, or Beach Mariel. But maybe it's still respectable. It's still 25 times attack multiplier, 65% damage reduction. Still not bad overall. And you get plus 5 seconds or movement time. The biggest drawback is no bonus combos, no auto follow attack, which can make it a little more difficult. Their super awakenings are so messy. They have 6 super awakenings. This is the first card of 6. I'm not quite sure. But that 5 attribute awakening does give them much more damage. But then they're still a 7/7 5 attribute with an okay attack stat. I guess maybe that's still not bad, because a 5 attribute is almost like a 10 combo. So it's still reasonable overall. But I feel like their weapon assist is still more helpful. Again, weapons last longer than cards, because their weapon gives you 2 Dark Orb enhances compared to before. So it's more damage. Why not? More stats if that's relevant to your Dark Inherit, but it's still a skill boost, still a big time extend, still bind immunity, and more passive damage. Not a bad thing to have overall. And if you need damage absorption cancellation, it's not a bad inherit to have. So I feel like for my mono Dark teams, I might start utilizing this hat more often, because it gives more stat transfer and more passive damage and movement time, which is good for Yuji and Mojito teams. For Omega in their base form, their active skill is still the 1-turn cooldown, but it now unlocks the board and gives you a single non-light orb to fire. So the board unlock could be helpful situationally if you need to unlock your board, of course, but I'm not quite sure where we could really utilize them on. Like, I feel like Sena is becoming one of the better solutions for orb unlocking because they have great personal damage. They have an active skill that makes you water and fire orbs and hard orbs, which is great for Seawolf or their own teams, and unlocks the board and gives you a 2-turn cooldown as well, and a movement time buff. So it's doing much more than Omega. Like, I think maybe if you didn't have, like, say, a light coverage card, maybe you could argue you can throw them on for, like, Shura 3 and inherit something meaningful over top, like a big shield. Like, say you had Halloween Inahime and you had multiple of them, you didn't run them as a sub, you can run them as an inherit on top. May not be a bad thing because 1-turn cooldown plus Halloween Inahime's active is still quite respectable overall. But I don't know. A lot of these cards that are not the Orb Skin, I feel like you're just falling in the category of being nice, but not nice enough. Their weapon gains more rows, but they still have a terribly low cooldown, so will overcharge and leave you in a bad situation. For Dark Color Omega, they became an even stronger farming leader. Their attack multiplier is sadly still the same as a leader, but their personal damage is higher. They have 5 attack while below 50% instead of 4. 2 to the power of 5 is 4, 8, 16, 32 times personal damage. A significant amount of personal damage. Great for swipe farming because all you need to do is be below 50% health and you do tons of damage. Their active skill halves your HP, which is exactly what you need, and gives you a row of fire and a row of dark orbs. Great times all around. I still feel like Dark Omega has relevance as a farming leader. It's not the best one out there because the attack multiplier is a little lower, but their own personal damage is quite high and the requirements are tremendously easy to achieve. For Gamila, her active skill has been buffed to now give you the same 2-turn delay, but it also recovers all Awoken skill binds. So having a backup way to clear Awoken binds is never a bad thing to have. Like in Shura 3, for instance, there is back-to-back unmatchable followed by Awoken bind from floors 3 to 4. So having another one can save stalling. But at the same time, I don't really know how I could utilize them effectively enough as a sub. Like, they don't give that many skill boosts. You could argue the delay is 2 more effective skill boosts, but like Royal Oak teams rather have Rose than L's, so like I just think it's a little bit awkward overall. Like it's okay, it's serviceable for sure. Maybe if you need light coverage, sure, but there are better things like Kaiba, Rex, etc. For her dark color form, her awakenings have been improved, but at the same time, the TPAs don't really have a good home anywhere else. Her active skill has been changed. It removes all orb blocks and changes the board to water, light, and dark orbs and gives you +3 combos and half damage for 2 turns. So the half damage for 2 turns can be relevant because you can tank bigger hits that you normally couldn't. Like I said, Shura 2 and 3 does have larger attacks for the bosses when they're below 50% health for the first time. So maybe you could argue that helps there. But again, those TPAs just feel a little bit wasteful. For Luluna, she has more skill boosts, but I don't really foresee where I could fit them in. Like, you have more skill boosts, you have modest VDP damage, some damage for 7 combos. I don't see where we could truly leverage her the best at this point in time. Like, it's an okay card. I just feel like a lot of these cards are just kind of mid-range. They're okay. They may help, but they may not do enough to help. Her active skill is now a 7 instead of 12-turn cooldown, which is definitely an improvement. And you get an attack buff and a movement time buff and +3 combos for 1 turn while unlocking the board and making the top row to wood. Like, I guess that is cool. And their leader skill does give you more stats compared to before. And you do get +3 combos with 6 linked wood orbs. In theory, a single row of wood swiped gives you 7 combos total. Maybe that's kind of cool if you're farming something that's very easy to do, but you need combo shield overcoming. I don't know. It's kind of awkward. Nothing super special. In her dark color form, you could argue that the dark color gives you more flexibility or options for Shura 3, which it definitely does because you may not necessarily always want to use Freyja. They do have personal damage. They have double 7 combo with lots of killers, but they're active, like they don't give as many skill boosts as Freyja, which is obviously a bit of a drawback. The active skill gives you a full health heal, and bind, Awoken bind, clear, and unmatchable. So a full cleric active skill is not bad. And then it gives you an attack and an RCV buff and movement time buff. So a universal buffer and a full cleric clear. Pretty useful active skill overall, I feel, but the problem is 12-turn cooldown is quite long. It may be difficult to actually, work around it, especially if there's repeated bind, Awoken binds, or unmatchable. But at the same time, if you don't have like Alina, Ceres, or other zestier clerics and you're not playing like Shura 3, this can definitely be a strong cleric solution for your mono wood teams. For Knight, in their base form, they have condensed their awakenings just to have a little bit more happiness because they now have Dungeon Boost. And Dungeon Boost is great because their leader skill gives you the bonus egg drop rate. So at this point in time, we only have Varroa Kitty, regular Varroa, and Knight, I believe, who can boost egg drop rates as a leader's skill. And this is huge because if you're token farming or like farming pies in the Gung Ho collab, this is exactly what I'm going to be doing when Gung Ho collab is here. Farming pies, because I need so many pies, unfortunately. And this is a great way to bolster it because you can play in solo mode, you're able to increase the egg drop rate, which means you save stamina because you can play a lower difficulty, and you can just button your way through various spawns. Great card to have overall, especially if you don't have Varroa or Varroa Kitty. It's well worth considering picking him up, and if I'm not mistaken, he should definitely be a monster exchange card. Worth it just for that aspect there, and it's just going to make your life easier if you farm stuff in solo mode. The other buffs probably don't matter too much overall, but he still has a button which can be useful. You can button your way through more stuff. So it's a button you don't have to inherit. So it does ease up some team building because you can inherit directly on top a Dungeon Boost Awakening. For their dark color, like they do give 99 turns of light Skyfalls. They do have more skill boost, but I still would prefer to have the base form unless you have Varroa or Varroa Kitty. It's just so unique, and like having unique stuff that is meaningful is much better than a reasonably generic light card. For Cyan, her active skill is now a 7-turn cooldown, and her active skill also gives you a 7 turns of 30% health heal. So instead of running 2 Kuroyuris, you could run a single Cyan. Much easier for team building purposes. She does have too many L's, which I think can be a little sad, but she does have super poison resist, so she's not a bad card to have on a given team, especially if you're trying to do that auto-healing cheesing aspect, but at the same time, there are not many places you can truly leverage this at this point in time, I feel. For her Chibi form, she does have better awakenings, like a more skill boost, and really just one more skill boost. And like, it's okay, but like the leader skill is nothing special, unfortunately. Bradamante used to be great, I felt, but now she's kind of not as great as she used to be because they're just stronger options. She has 4 skill boosts and super blind resist. She has a 10 combo, 7 combo VDP, and another offensive awakening via super awakenings, but her attack set's kind of low, so like I feel like you're a nice damage stick. You do have super blind resist, you do have 4 skill boosts, you do have a reasonably low cooldown, and the active skill has been buffed. It clears all hazards and water into light, locks the board, and then fully recovers all awoken skills or awoken skill binds. So again, a backup cleric can be useful if you're playing through stuff where there's back-to-back encounters. Like, I don't think she's terrible by any means, but she's just kind of a bit of a generalist, I feel. Like, maybe I'm giving her a bit less credit. Like, also, I think possibly why I'm giving her less credit is like, where can we truly leverage them well? Daytona teams probably don't need to utilize her. So what other monolight teams are there out there at this point in time? They're not really that many, just because we lack a truly great leader for that. So like, maybe they're okay, maybe, I don't know, it's hard to say. Like, their leader skill gives you a 7x6 board, so maybe it gives you some 7x6 swapping shenanigans. Like, it's not a bad card to have. So maybe it could be an alternative to yours, like Cecilia or Sophie's for 7x6 swapping. Not a bad thing to have overall. Like, it's still a reasonably strong card, but I feel like maybe she could have a little bit more. I don't know, it's hard to say. For her Chibi form, like, I don't think they're that great. Like I said, the leader swapping was the main reason why you use the Chibi form, and there are just better and more leader swap options available. Urs Laguna has a 2 million button now. 2 million damage button can be great. You can smash your way through a very bulky spawn with relative ease. They do have more personal damage with a 7 and a 10 combo along with their killers, and they've condensed their awakenings. So, like, maybe if you are doing something that needs killer damage and you hit combos, this could be helpful. The buttoning does make things go faster, but it only buttons one enemy, so just be mindful of that aspect. For their Chibi form, they do gain a 10 combo and those killers, but again, I'm not quite sure where we could use them. I'd rather have their base form to leverage the button itself. For Grand Starster, they had a tiny bit of time in the sun, but I feel like they're just underwhelming because of the Jammer Blessing Awakening. Jammer Blessing is going to make you have jammers falling down, and no one's going to benefit from this. Even Grand Starster gets hardly any attack bonus from it, and their attack set's so low it doesn't even make a difference. So they're playing with 8 instead of 9 awakenings. You could argue that maybe they're a full cleric if you have absolutely nothing else to utilize, but at the same time, if you have any other water cleric, I would probably want to use them over Grand Starster, unless specifically you need to be able to remove locked orbs and get a board changer with that bind awoken bind. Maybe if there's that one particular instance, maybe you can make that argument. For their Chibi form, they gain personal damage and more passive damage, so yay, but again, these stats are so low and difficult to work with. Lilia has improved herself for her active skill. You get +2 combos and a single roulette being made. And making a roulette is huge because you can counter spinners and the bonus movement time. Oh, sorry. The roulette allows you to spin out orbs you need for activation or just get rid of other spinners. And they give you a 5-turn bind, awoken bind, clear. Not a bad thing to have. Like I said, having backup clerics is never a bad thing to have. The roulette spinning or making is pretty unique overall, I feel, for the most part. And their awakenings are all right. They have Wood Rose, they have VDPs, so not a bad mono wood card, but I kind of feel like it's kind of like Bradamante. You're kind of doing some stuff, but maybe you could argue the spinner creation is pretty unique. Maybe. As a leader, like, they're okay. Like, it's nothing special, unfortunately. Like, they need to match 6 or more Wood Orbs, so, like, I guess if you didn't have your own Nautilus, you can definitely pair with Nautilus, and you don't have Celica, it can cover red attributes, sure. Stuff can happen like that. For her dark color, her active skill has been improved because it will still change hazards and water to wood, and then it locks wood orbs, which counter spinners potentially, and it fully recovers unmatchable orbs. So a nice alternative backup cleric, again, if you may need to use it. The dark color coverage can be meaningful for Nautilus teams if you don't have Freyja or don't want to run her. Has a respectable amount of skill boost and personal damage, so not a bad thing overall. And if you are playing through stuff with lots of unmatchable, it can be meaningful potentially. For Raphael, their active skill has been buffed. It's still a 10-turn cooldown. You get a full health heal, bind, awoken bind, and unmatchable clear, and a massive shield. So it's doing a bit of everything, but I just don't know how I would justify using them on a team because, like, they have conditional damage due to the attack while above 50% and then 2 VDPs. Like, it's okay. It's nothing truly great or special. Their weapon assist now provides you with an skill bind resist. So maybe if you need skill bind resist and a follow-up attack, which I don't think you're going to need, maybe. Or you just want to have an active skill that's a full cleric and a big shield. I think this is actually a reasonably flexible inherit because you're going to need at least one of those aspects potentially in a given dungeon. So you can have that flexibility of utilizing it as a inherit. Not a bad thing because I don't really foresee myself using them as a sub. For their dark form, they do have the 10 combo. They have passive damage with the enhanced wood orbs. They have, like, more movement time. Like, it's a little bit better, but at the same time, can I really justify their inclusion on the team? Let's take a look at their active skill. The active skill gives you a 2x attack buff for wood and 2x RCV and movement time. So a universal buffer. Not a bad thing overall. And then you remove orb blocks and change all orbs to wood, dark, and heals. So a universal buffer with a board changer. Not a bad thing to have overall, but it's a 9-turn cooldown, which is obviously quite long, so you may not be able to leverage it as often as you like. I feel like the Sophies are just a stronger universal buffer if you're really into that type of thing, and Sophie does have much better personal damage by comparison. So it all comes down to that. They do give a 7x6 board if you are interested in that leader swap shenanigans, but I feel like if you have Sophies or Cecilias, they're just stronger options for 7x6 swapping. Rankleaf is actually quite a valuable card nowadays, especially in MD2 or Dimension of the Mystics 2, which the title challenge is finished, because for your mono dark teams, she has 4 skill boosts, which is great. She does have bonus damage with the enhanced combo orb, and her active skill has been buffed to give you 6 turns of Dark Skyfalls and clear remove 5 turns of bind and remove 5 turns of Unwoken Binds and Unmatchable. So in Dimension of Mystics 2 or MD2, you need Unmatchable. Perfect solution for that. Gives you Dark Skyfall buff. Amazing. Will make you have a much better time if you're playing like Mikage or you're playing Yuji Mihito. More Dark Orbs all the time. More happiness. Respectable amounts of personal damage. There's no real drawback to this card. I like this card. I wish I had one, especially if you were doing the title challenge or you're just trying to play through a dungeon. A great option to have overall because it's providing useful things, like I said. Like, it does give you that water coverage, which might be helpful. Like, I guess these backup clerics you could argue, but like, I don't know. I feel like this one just provides more because the Dark Orb Skyfall is so powerful overall. Their weapon assist now gives you a team HP, so that's great, but I feel like it's better to keep them in their base form because that's quite spicy what it does. For their dark color form, they're still a TPA monster. They still have large amounts of damage for relatively little effort, assuming you're a devil or attacker type, but I don't know. Like, it's just, there are many farming leaders out there. I feel like they're a bit more unique in a sense in their base form. I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool. I could be undervaluing it. I don't have one, so I don't know exactly how great it could be. For this Urge here, they have more skill boost and they have more attack while below 50%. So more damage is cool, but again, I don't really quite know where we could utilize them. In their chibi form, they gain an extra skill boost, and yay, that's it. Like, they can be potentially a reasonable leader, but juggling health and being below half health is such a risky thing nowadays when everything hits for probably 80% of your health pool. It's difficult to juggle health. For Verdandi, she does gain Awakening Condensing, so she has more VDP damage. Never utilized her much before, probably not going to utilize her still. In her chibi form, she has a 2-turn cooldown that gives you a column of heart orbs. It's still a unique thing in the sense that if you are using like super reincarnated Hino to farm stuff, you can have 2 of these and make column of heart orbs every single turn. You don't heal, but you trigger Hino's leader skill for the auto follow-up attack all the time with no thinking. I guess that is cool. They do have better they have a cloud resist compared to before. Like, I don't know, it's niche and situational. For Scald, which confuses me all the time because they're different colors, this should be Verdandi. This should be Scald to me. Either way, her awakenings have been condensed. She has way too much skill bind resist still. So, yeah, I don't really foresee how we can utilize her that efficiently. For her chibi form, she has reasonable amounts of personal damage with a 10 combo and a VDP. She has 3 team RCVs. Not a bad thing overall. 4 skill boosts now instead of 3. Her active skill is a 3-turn cooldown that gives you a attack debuff for light, so it's an attack buff in a sense there, and creates 3 water, wood, and light orbs at random. Like, I guess it's kind of cool, but there are definitely much spicier things to use at this point in time. Gung Ho Minerva has been improved for her active skill because it now gives you a attack and RCV buff. So RCV buffing I find nice because I find attack buffing quite common, but it's based off of your amount of time extends you have. So if you have lots of time extends, maybe it does a meaningful amount of attack buff, but it's an attack buff that gives no orb changers. So that's just kind of awkward, I feel, overall. Their awakenings have been improved or condensed, so to speak. Like, they do have 777 with a 4 attribute. So they do have larger personal damage, but where can we really utilize them? Like, it definitely wants rainbow team usage, but it's just an attack and RCV buff with nothing else alongside of it. Maybe on 7x6 you're okay because you don't need the board changers, but attack and RCV, like I said, is Beach Mariel, and most teams are probably going to pair with Beach Mariel in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, the active skill becomes redundant, unfortunately, because even if you don't have Beach Mariel, your friend does, and therefore you have access to it. Her weapon assist now gives you a team health along with the God Killer and the enhanced light orbs. Again, that cooldown is a little low, so it might overcharge when you don't want it to. For her dark color, her awakenings have been condensed, or she just gained an extra skill boost, I should say. And, like, I have nowhere really to fit her on. Like, if I had this card, I don't know where I would actually utilize them on a given team. Their active skill is now a 4-turn cooldown that recovers 50% of your health and creates 6 light orbs at random. Like, it's not countering mechanics, it's not doing much. I don't really foresee them actually being used anywhere at this point in time. And then finally, Gung Ho Lakshmi has received a buff to her weapon assist. It's actually a reasonably strong weapon assist, especially if you need a almost looping shield. But there's another orb skin card I'll talk about when I do the review later that is going to be a better weapon assist for a looping shield. So, in conclusion, the Gung Ho collab does have various buffs for various cards, but the problem is the non-orb skin cards are kind of meh. There are only a couple of cards here that I feel are truly great, and most of them are kind of like okay to have, but I would only use them if I didn't have better options currently available. So hopefully this video provides you with some insight as to what buffs you have received for pre-existing Gung Ho collab cards. I will be doing another review for the Gung Ho collab when it does get announced or released either on Friday or Monday, whichever day they do decide to do so in the coming days. So with that being said, let me know what you think about the buffs in the comments down below. Is anyone truly exciting, or do you feel kind of like me where most of the cards are just kind of like nice to have? Not many of them are truly big standouts, but the orb skins like Belial and Future Crusader / Paladin. Either way, hopefully you all have a truly fantastic day. I wish you all the very best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.